Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of Raising the Curtain, a Bloomington Normal Theater podcast with Ashley Raylin. On today's episode, we are interviewing Bruce Parrish. Hello, everyone. I am here with Bruce Parrish, the current president and historian of Community Players Theater. How are you, Bruce?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So we're here to talk today a little bit about Community Players Theater, the longest running theater in Bloomington Normal. And one of the longest running theaters in Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
In Illinois and pretty much in many places across the country.
So, Bruce, why don't we just start off by telling me a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How'd you get involved with theater?
Okay, well, as you said, my name is Bruce Parrish, and I am the current president of the Board of Governors here at Players. I've been involved with Players since 1976. I've probably done about 130 or 40 productions just here at Players in those years. I have produced, directed, stage managed. I have been in plays, dramas, comedies, musicals. The first show I ever did here was 1776, back in 1976, and it was an interesting way to get involved with community players. I was teaching at Jefferson School in Bloomington, 5th and 6th grade, and the 2nd grade teacher said, "My husband is looking for people in a show at Community Players. Have you ever heard of that or done that?" And I said, "No, I haven't." So they said, "Go on out." And I came out here, and I thought it was to read, and it was to play the character of George Reed, because she knew I had a background in theater from Illinois Wesleyan University. And all of a sudden, there I was, and never looked back since 1976. I was born and raised down in Alton, Illinois, and came north to go to Wesleyan, and just never really returned home. Stayed here. This is my home.
We captured you, didn't we?
Yes, and I loved it.
This isn't your first time serving as president of the organization, correct?
That is correct. In 1984 to 86, I was president of the organization. And at that time, the current seats that are in were put in at that time. We purchased them and renovated a little bit of the interior. And now here it is. We are trying to do another renovation to get new seats and a new structure for the seats. And we're hoping to be able to start that officially in the 25-26 season. We'll do about a half season and then shut her down in the wintertime where it's easier to get workers, and they'll come in and work on the structure and the new seating. So we're hoping to be ready by that summer for that summer musical.
It'll be good. It's due for a good facelift.
Oh, it is good. Yes. It just is funny. President when they went in,
President when they go out. And you are also currently directing the ongoing production of Fiddler on the Roof at Community Players.
That's right. With my wife, Kathy, we are co-directing, and I brought a number of the Mariti back to head the staffs of the different groups to give the younger players an opportunity to work with those of us who have gone on before here and have done many of the successes of the past. But we have the directors and the actors that were in the first and second Joseph. We have lighting people that have been with us since the 80s and the 90s. And the scenic designer who was here for his first show was Oklahoma, the first Oklahoma back in 78. So we have quite an interesting collection of the Emeriti trying to help and pass on our wisdom and knowledge to this group. And we've been very fortunate with the show. They've all worked extremely hard. Ironically, it's basically sold out everything. It's the 4th time Players did.
I was about to ask how many times they've done it.
Fiddler on the Roof. The young man, yeah, he's kind of young. Scott Myers plays the rabbi, and Scott and I were in the first one. He was Model Damzoil, the tailor, and I was Reb Nachum, the beggar, and I was the co-producer with Ruthie Cobb, and then I was the co-builder with Paul Dillow, And I also was the stage left stage manager in the first one. I was 25 and foolish. So what can I say? Now I'm old and still foolish because I ended up having to build and do some other things
Of
that I
course.
had not anticipated doing.
Bruce always builds.
Yeah.
So I've actually worked with Bruce quite a few times. He was kind of my mentor when I came back from my hiatus from Players, when I was the set designer for West Side Story. He kind of helped me. I accidentally put a screw through his hand, but I think he's forgiven me since.
If I told you you weren't the only one to do that.
Oh, well, that makes me feel better. And then I also got to act in All My Sons that Bruce directed and Kathy produced. And then, of course, I've served on the board of governors with Bruce for the last 6 years. So if you ever get a chance to work with him, I highly recommend it. He's a pretty cool dude, and he knows his stuff. Helped me with one of my graduate papers when I was writing my comprehensive exams about community theater. So that was pretty cool. So, Bruce, why do you do theater?
It's just something I've loved. I've been in plays since ninth grade, and my high school had a great, what became a preparatory for getting into Illinois Wesleyan University and their School of Theater back then. We did 3 shows a year in my high school, plus we built the sets. And I mean, it was truly a great learning opportunity to understand theater and to do theater and to work with everything. And I had some great teachers. You know, you always speak of the teachers you remember. And Mr. Clifford Davenport, he was there, and Mr. John Fabjance, and these men are now gone, but they just gave you the greatest education in understanding theater. Interestingly enough, Mr. Davenport took the whole thespian troupe over to the American Theater in St. Louis because we were down close to St. Louis. And we saw one of the earliest touring companies, A Fiddler on the Roof. That was one of the first professional shows I really got to see. And I just was enamored of this show. I mean, I've loved it. I was a part of it when Illinois Wesleyan had the opportunity to do it in 1971. So it's always been near and dear to my heart. And then shortly after we closed The Fiddler in 77, and that's when Kathy and I got married.
Oh,
so
it's all good timing.
It has a lot of good meaning for me.
So tell us a little bit about Community Players Theater. We mentioned you're the president. You've been around since the 70s, but the main thing I think a lot of people know you for is being the historian of the organization and having so much knowledge of the organization. So let us have it. Tell us about CPT.
Okie doke. Well, we are located at 201 Robin Hood Lane. We're just north of what used to be the old post office. And if you're an old-time Bloomington resident listening, well, at first a Piggly Wiggly, and then it became a Jewel, not a Jewel, but what was the name of that store? It was a grocery store. Anyway, we were north of the old post office, if you remember that. We are a nonprofit charitable organization. We are an open organization. I mean, anyone is welcome to audition. Anyone is welcome to volunteer. If you look on our website, communityplayers.org, you'll see an opportunity to fill in a volunteer form, and kind of that's how you get started. And we're very proud of our 101-year history. It's something that we've worked on as historian. I took over as historian in 1991 and found almost basically nothing. It had all been lost, so I had to start from nothing to put it to what it is now. And if you look on the new website at communityplayers.org, and in the drop-down boxes, you'll see past shows. And my goal was to list the names of any person who ever did something in a show from March 6, 1923 to Fiddler on the Roof 2023. And I'm very proud of the fact that if your grandparent or your great-grandparent or your parent or your cousin or your brother or someone did something in a show, you should be able to find them and how they participated. It's one of the oldest all-volunteer organizations operating, and I'm very proud of being a part of that. I'm probably just a small part of it, but it's cool. It's really a neat thing. And not every experience is guaranteed to be super fun, but you never give up on a place if you care about it, and you just keep going, because I would say 99% of all the things I've ever done here have been enjoyable, fun, learning, and wouldn't trade this experience for anything. So that's pretty much what I would say about community players. If you wish to be a part of it, fill out that volunteer form or just, show up. They're open auditions. Anyone can audition.
Yeah.
We usually audition plays 2 nights and musicals are 3. And sometimes the plays have callbacks because plays can be very popular too, depending upon the play. We had, we have a cast of 39 in Fiddler, and that's a large cast for a musical. And I think we had something like 79 people audition. So a lot of people were interested in it. And some of the musical auditions are very much like that. You were, I think, were a part of Newsies.
So I know Newsies had a lot of people.
Yes.
I know for when I directed Jesus Christ Superstar, we had over 50 come out. And then I know for 12 Angry Jurors that just had auditions last week for 13 characters. I want to say they had 45 people.
Yeah, it's
when we say we can cast shows 3 times over, we mean it.
Yeah, we really do. You could. So, we do comedies and dramas. We do musicals. We do old musicals and new musicals. This one, Fiddler, is an example of a classic musical. It's what they call an old war horse because it runs with intermissions close to 3 hours. And it's a great story. It's certainly pertinent for our time. And, someone said, how did you know to pick that? Well, we have to pick them a year in advance. Yeah. So that was the luck of the draw. But we try to do 3 musicals. We try to do either a mystery or a comedy or a drama. Our next season has, I think, we're going to be working on our new season, the 102nd season, actually tonight at the board meeting that we're holding. We hold the board meetings every second Tuesday.
I thought we were about to get a spoiler alert there for a second.
Oh, no. Can't tell you what I don't know.
That's very true.
Yeah. No, I'm the neutral one. I sit and wait, and then if I have to vote, I only vote when there's a tie. I think that's what a good president does, too. We occasionally entertain in the community because we've had those galas in the last couple of years because they've been celebratory years.
Yes.
And we try to open any of that up to our members and anyone who wants to come and see. We'll be doing in January the actual announcement of the 102nd season, and we'll have it this year at the theater like we used to do. We went off-site the last 2 years for special seasons, one to announce the 100th and then one to announce this one. The gala had like formal attire, 1920s, celebrate the 100 years, all of that stuff. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of what some of the challenges are getting, like set builders and directors and musical directors, but we're able to get all of those. One year I remember we had to cancel the summer show because we couldn't get a director, and sometimes we just couldn't get enough actors. This is way back in the 80s and 90s. Now there are no issues with that. No. The summer musical is one of our bigger entertainments. We try to make that the family-friendly one if we can. We have the problems of a 60-year-old building. We've had to replace the heating. We've had to replace the roof. Very soon we hope to replace the seating and the structure that holds up the seating. We have had water in the basement, but we've worked on that when there's a heavy rain. The city finally has helped. They put in new curbing. They've also expanded the size of our drains and sewers out in the streets. So that's been a godsend to us because we fought floods in the basement for 30 years. That was always,
good bonding time of carrying buckets up those basement steps of water.
Yeah.
With a show going on sometimes.
Oh, I know, yeah. We have updated our website, and we continue to update the website. So you'll find that the current 2 shows that are in rehearsal, Holiday on Robin Hood Lane and 12 Angry Jurors. Some of our older audience may remember it was the show 12 Angry Men, and the author actually has updated it and rerun it to fit more contemporary times. And so that's what we chose to do that one because quite a number of women are in this one, and that's really good. Like everybody, we have the financial challenges. tried to keep our ticket prices reasonable for the community, and I think we do. Sometimes the economy hurts your attendance, and sometimes it's your friend. In Fiddler, somehow we seem to have a lot of friends who come to get reacquainted with our shows, and that's just really good.
So 201 Robin Hood Lane, like Bruce said, by the old post office, if you kind of across the street from Donnie B's Popcorn. But I know it can be hidden for some people, but we've got new signs that light up and everything now.
New signs for the 100th season.
Bruce, can you tell us a little bit about the previous locations? Because Robin Hood was not always the location for the theater.
Right. We started it, our very first show, March 6, 23, was Overtones. It was a one-act. It was presented by the Bloomington Women's Club, and then that night after the performance, they formed the Community Players, and people bought tickets and became members, and that was in the old Turner Hall. We have used the old, we've used the old Bloomington High School, which is now an apartment area. We have used, one show was done at Normal Community. Illinois Wesleyan has provided a couple of venues for us back in the 20s. The old Memorial Gymnasium, it was the Memorial Gym when I went to Wesleyan. They're on Franklin Avenue. We also did Presser Hall. We did there a couple times, a couple shows. We have done what used to be the Illini Theater, and that is next to the Luca Grill. It's now a church. And we did the Majestic Theater, which is now one of the city, it houses city offices there. It was the old Bloomington Fed, if you're an old timer. It sits across from the old State Farm building, the old corporate building. We were at the BCPA, as they call it today. It was called the Consistory Scottish Rite Temple back then. We were there from 1945 until 1961. We did Showboat at the time for just 4 performances. And that allowed us to raise the roof on this building and get the building enclosed and encased. This land was purchased in the late 50s, early 60s, and then it opened in 1962 here at Robin Hood Lane with a production of Death of a Salesman. And that season we were only able to do 1 show. And then after that, it's just been 4 or 5 shows every season since 1962, 63. And so we have just continued to grow. We had an addition, which we all call the shop. The addition was in 73. The building we're sitting in to do this is the 1962 part. This was actually their catch-all room, the green room we are in. It held costumes. And it held a big slop sink, and everything happened here. You had to, if you went off stage right under the old light dock, you would run around the building, come in the front door, come in on stage left until they built the shop. Then you could cut around. There was room to cut around. Sometimes if it was one of the early musicals, they would build right up to the back wall, and that's when you had to run around. And most of the musicals in those days were done in the fall, so that the weather wasn't so bad you couldn't make that run around in the back of the building. It saw new seating in 63. Well, it was actually old movie theater seating from Chicagoland. They brought it down. It was used seating, but it was good. It lasted from the time I came until what we put in, what do we have? The golden seats now. And they've been in since 86. And then hopefully you'll have red seats to match the new red Grand. And that'll be in 2025. That's our goal.
So you and me have both kind of mentioned that Community Players is an all-volunteer organization, but it does have a board of governors. You have served on it. I served on it for 3 terms as the secretary. So while I might be familiar with the inner workings of the theater, can you kind of explain a little bit about what the Board of Governors does, their responsibilities, maybe how someone can get involved on the board?
Yes, well, every spring we have, we turn over 1/2 of our board each season. And so depending upon what board position is open, you have an opportunity. We try to put it on our website, communityplayers.org, and we try to describe the position that's open. So anyone, who's a member can certainly, or anyone who wants to get interested in being a part of the organization. That was where I spoke to the volunteer opportunities, and they go to the different positions on the board. Example, there's obviously an executive board, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and those jobs are pretty self-explanatory for anyone who knows about those jobs. But the other jobs, pardon me, that we have on the board, for example, there is a board member that oversees our costume shop. So they can be counted on to either do a show or certainly offer support and help for a costumer for a show with our costumes that we have in the basement, or if some have to be rented, like specialty costumes, like some of the Disney shows. We have a shop governor who oversees the construction part of it. He's there to offer help or advice, or in some cases they build. I know when I was in charge of the shop a lot of years, I went ahead and did the building because I knew what materials we had in stock and what we would need to build. Well, let's see, there's lighting and sound, and we have a new, a computerized light board, so you have to learn your way with that. Each year, our current board member for lighting and sound constantly updates the stock and the supply to make sure we have contemporary lighting. We now have the newer updated lighting and the kind that can swirl. And Dan's very proud of what he does. Oh, we have the marketing and the advertising and the PR people, and they help spread the word of community players, either with advertisers. At the opening of every show, a screen comes down, and we have a very small program now. Economics and time has dictated that we go to just a small basic program. So all the things that used to be, if you're an old timer and you remember the bigger programs, all those things are now on a projector screen. And so they're able to see some of our sponsors or people who have bought ads from us so that we can help them with their product and they can help us with our product. We have a fundraising chair who hopefully will help us try to secure funds. We have a play reading chair, and that is a group of both board members and non-board members who read a series of shows, both comedies, dramas, and musicals, to help us try to select a well-balanced season.
There's the box office chair.
There's the box office chair, which is a lot harder than you realize.
Yes, it is.
And now the box office is all computerized, but they have to make sure that it is staffed with everything is volunteers, and it's staffed with volunteers who can give their time freely to help sell tickets, and they answer the phone and they take all the messages that come in on the message machines.
There's events and membership.
Membership is, at this point, it's $20 for a season. And if you're going to be in a play, we ask that you become a member. And that allows you to attend the board meetings and any other special events we may have. We've had a picnic. We've had the weenie roast not very long ago, and marshmallows, and made s'mores. Well, your membership gets a bit of a discount on a ticket. It helps anybody get that.
You also get to vote.
You get to vote on you can come to the end of the year meeting and vote on the slate of people running for the board positions.
I think the only one we may not have mentioned, sorry, Morgan, is our social media.
Yes. Oh, well, that's, because it's very much, she's very important. She does a lot of without her, the website starts to look a little empty.
Yeah.
So she makes sure that every show knows that they can do some TikTok videos on a production that they're a part of. She publishes, when I give her as historian throwbacks. I try to go back each time. Sometimes I go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s,
range.
70s. I try to do a good range so people can see we really have been here for quite a while. And we've done a variety of shows. I mean, we really have. We've done, actually, in 1920s, we did a one-act opera in association with Illinois Wesleyan School of Music. Our first musical was in 1950. It was Good News, that old college musical, and was performed at the BCP, or the consistory. And then in 61, we did Showboat to Raise the Roof here at Robin Hood Lane. And then in 64, we began what would be an every season thing. They started the first one with Guys and Dolls. Mm-hmm. Guys and Dolls has been a three-peat. We've done it 3 times here at Players.
I think the only one we haven't mentioned is House and Grounds.
Oh, very important. Yeah. They're the guy that makes sure, they're the ones who make sure that in the winter the sidewalks are clear. We try to do the best to put salt down in our portion of the parking lots. We do not own the parking lot. Mm-hmm. The parking lot is owned by the owners of the building. That is our neighbor, and they granted us back in 62 parking in perpetuity. And so, except the downside is when they don't have a tenant, the parking lights are out, and we try to do the best we can to get everybody out there safely. We try to make sure we've actually taken over till we plow the section we think our patrons will use. Mm-hmm. We've tried very hard to do that in the last couple of seasons. It's not a great big board. It used to be much bigger.
I think it's 15?
Yes.
15. Yes. And if I may, all of the positions serve 2-year terms.
Yes.
Half go in odd number years, half go in even number years. The only exception is vice president and president, which are the 4 years on and off.
Yes. Or if, for example, someone due to job relocation or whatever has to leave midterm or something, then the president will appoint another person. Then that person finishes that year. And if they choose, then they can run again on their own name, their own terms, not just as they fill in.
One thing that's really cool about community players that at least I know about is if you visit the website, which as Bruce has mentioned is communityplayers.org, you can actually go on and see the production guidelines, the constitution and bylaws.
Yes.
To really kind of learn the inner workings of the theater, all these opportunities to get involved when the seasons are announced, put in, if you've always wanted to music direct, put into music direct, put into direct, produce, costume, sound, everything. I started out here as an actor, 2009, I think. And now I've directed 3 productions. I've produced, costumed a lot of stuff. So once you get your foot in the door, it's really hard to leave.
Yeah. Like The Godfather 3, they keep drawing you back in.
Bruce, we did kind of mention this a little bit, but how did the COVID pandemic impact community players?
Well, like everyone, we were forced to shut down in the middle of production of Big Fish. We only got to do the opening weekend of Big Fish.
It was a beautiful show, too.
And then the state and the feds, everybody closed everybody down. And sadly, we couldn't finish it. We were later able to pick up the other shows that had been slated for that season, but we've never been able to go back to Big Fish yet. We have been very fortunate in that everyone worried when we started up again, would people come back? Would they be willing to sit in an auditorium with a bunch of others? And at first we came back with the rotating seats like was recommended by the CDC.
We did require proof of vaccination to attend and be involved.
To be involved, you had to have proof of vaccinations.
Masks needed to be worn.
And even in the very first few shows, we had to get proof of testing to make sure, like everyone did. We all had to do that. But what I was going to say is we were very blessed in our organization. The audiences came back, as is noted here with Fiddler, just a couple years later, full houses for every show, and that's been exciting. We had to actually do a couple of shows to let them know. We tried to do online things to let them know we were still here. We did like variety shows, talent type shows. Members offered, sent in tapes of singing or doing readings.
Monologues.
Yes, everything that you could imagine theater does, they all were willing to do. Our first show was that we tried to do in-house was title of show. And it was a 3-camera show that was done over it had to be streamed, I guess is the real term for it.
That was cast of 5 people. I myself, as the director, also served as choreographer, costumer. I think the entire production itself had about 11 people. Our set design was literally laid out in 6x6 grid squares so we could make sure to keep the 6 foot grid distance. And we also did the Brothers Grimm Spectaculathon. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
No, that sounds about right.
With a cool streaming service that I can't remember the name of right now. But yeah, so there were a lot of different ways that
we even worked with professional actors on
Yeah.
a couple of workshops.
Yes, we did some master classes. That's right.
And then the other first real big full-time come on back to the theater, Miss Cass Cabaret. And then after that, we were back to a regular full season, full steam ahead, and people came back. Yeah. And we were very thrilled, and they've all come back. And we were so very happy with that. I know not every theater has had that good luck that we had. And we still offer the kind of season that most people will want to see. Mm-hmm. We offer our ticketing system you can use your ticket, what they call a flex system. If you wanted to see all 3 musicals, you could use your tickets for that versus one of each. And this season we've had Neil Simon's Rumors and Fiddler on the Roof. We are going to have in early December the Holiday on Robin Hood Lane show, 12 Angry Jurors, and then the second half of the season we will have Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks comedy, I Hate Hamlet, which of course is the story of if you don't know it, it's the story of an actor who is not used to the stage. He's more used to the contemporary media, and he's asked to play Hamlet and he doesn't want to, and he's visited by the ghost of John Barrymore, who encourages him to take this wonderful part of Hamlet. And then, of course, your personal favorite, Mary Poppins in the Summer. That's our family show.
Yes, we love Mary Poppins.
We love it very much.
So, Bruce, before we kind of move on to anything else, I do believe that so we all know that the community players are going through a renovation. And I would like you to maybe talk about the individual who kind of brought this idea into fruition, Mr. Graff, if you would like to speak about him a little bit.
Yes. Well, Mr. Graff was this kind little old man who used to come on Sunday matinees. And there were times when my wife would be watching the lobby and he would be waiting for his cab at the end of the show, and we always stayed with him no matter how late the cab ran. And he would always talk to us about the shows he saw, the ones he enjoyed, the ones he didn't care for as much. So, we would get feedback on everything. He was a kind little man. He didn't really have a family, and then we found out a couple years ago that he passed away, and we were remembered in his will, and it was a substantial enough amount to be able to get the renovation moving in a very positive manner. And so the auditorium will display his photo, and we will call it the Mr. Graff Auditorium, just to do him honor, because he helped make this possible in an era when, people don't always donate to brick and mortar, but without the brick and mortar, you can't do the shows.
Right.
So they're very important. And I only say that because if there are people interested in helping, that is one of the ways you can get involved. You can perhaps sponsor the show or advertise in the program. You can, of course, volunteer. You can audition. You can attend. Even attending helps our shows.
Absolutely.
Very much. But anyway, we wanted to name that section for Mr. Graff, and as a way of saying thank you, and from the bottom of our hearts, we're grateful for what you did for us.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And like I said, that hopes to open for the summer musical of 2025. The website, if you go there's a section for renovation, and it's very detailed. It's how you can purchase a seat if you want to get a seat for yourself, your family, your loved one, the different ways you can buy the seat, how you can honor someone with the name on the seat.
A little plaque on the back.
A little plaque on the back. That's one of those things that greatly helps us, because if we're paying for the reno, that's one price. the seating is a whole
different price. Yeah.
price. And the seating in there, believe it or not, in 1986 dollars was $30,000. So you can imagine in 2023 dollars what the new seats will be. At this point, it's somewhere in the ballpark of 80,000. And so we hope to be able to hopefully have sponsors for every seat, which, you know, putting those name tags on that would be a great privilege.
Yeah, that's so cool.
To share, and it's your way of being a part of Community Players forever.
I am going to give 12 Angry Jurors a little bit of a plug here.
You bet.
If you're, you know, trying to just get your foot in the door with Community Players, maybe just wanting to meet some new people, 12 Angry Jurors does have their street team coming up on December 2nd. With a cast of only 13 people, they could definitely use some extra hands to, you know, go plaster Bloomington normal with posters. And that's one really cool thing about Street Team. I know other theaters in the town do it. You get together and donuts are usually provided. And who doesn't love a donut?
And a morning refreshing beverage.
Exactly. And you can, you know, get acquainted with some of the people in the cast. I'm friends with quite a few of them. And you can help support local theater. If you have a local business and you want to support, let us know and we will gladly hang your poster up. I know Bruce and I were talking to Felicia, the ad sales and PR chair, over the weekend, and she said that we've added 10 new businesses just off of the Holiday on Robin Hood Lane Street team, which is incredible to help promote the shows. So, Bruce, is there anything else you'd like to add about Community Players before I ask you some of my personal favorite questions?
Well, I just wanted to say it offers an opportunity for any individual to be involved in a theatrical process at the amateur level. If you as you work on different productions, you'll learn more about the process and you might build skills that are used in other creative outlets. Almost every theater in McLean County has in some way been a part of Community Players, in that back in the 1940s in Normal, play crafters, and they were members of Community Players that went off to create their own theater. I know that Heartland did the same thing, Phil Shaw and Don. Coalescence Theater, Prairie Fire, some of the others all kind of got their start here. They saw it as an opportunity for them to expand their interests and their goals and desires. And that's always been kind of a neat thing to think about. And if you took dance classes as a kid, or you performed in school recitals and high school shows, or if you're new to the area, give us a break, give us a chance, come on in and join some of the hardworking fun that we provide here at Players.
I thought you were going to rhyme that and say, join the dance.
Yes, well, I could have, but I was trying to be a good boy because I was driving them crazy with rhymes one night. So they said, stop it. And I said, okay.
Okay, so Bruce, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, not really pertaining to Community Players, but pertaining to you.
Oh, okay.
And your answer can't be Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
I'm going to throw you for a loop.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite play and or musical?
I have always been extremely fond of the musical Shenandoah.
Yeah.
If you know the movie,
I've heard you talk about
with
this.
Jimmy Stewart, the musical is just an awesome thing. We also were very fortunate, and we sold that out. And it was an unknown show for many people in the Bloomington Normal area. No one had done it before. And we had a good-sized, respectable cast, and I would tell you it's an anti-war play, but it isn't. It deals with the war head-on and what it ended up being. And we had some wonderful people in it, and it got to audiences. If we had sold a tissue concession at the end of the play when the little boy comes home, crippled, I'm home, sir. And
spoiler alert.
Big grown men were sitting out in the audience. You could hear them sniffle. Because I remember there was a guy who was a bricklayer, and he was a relative of one of the guys in the show. And he came up to me, and he had a bit of a southern accent, but he said, I was real good till that little boy came back. And oh my God, I started to cry.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, thank you. But Shenandoah has always been close to my heart, and Stephen Sondheim's Company. Believe it or not, we did Company in the 80s.
I love Company.
And I
love
absolutely
Sondheim.
adore. Well, I was blessed. I got to direct several of the Sondheim in my time. I got to be in Company. I was his friend Peter, who was excited to have him come over for supper to let him know he's going to Mexico for a divorce. And then he gets down there. He loves it so much he sends for his wife and kids, and they all basically reunite on that vacation. It's a great musical, I think. It's I just love it. I got to do a little night music. I got to do Forum twice, the first 2 times, in 81 and in 2000. We wrote to Sondheim, and he signed the special artwork that our program cover had, and he sent it back. So I have that. We got one for the designer who created the artwork, and one for one of the leads in the show and the choreographer. Oh. We had a great time. I loved that show very, very much. And then I got to be in it the 3rd time, and it was.
He was in it with me.
I know. I always have fun with that show. It's just such a wonderful. It's one of the best comedy books for a musical ever written. Plays, I think All My Sons ranks up there, very close to my heart as a great show, and the presentation was awesome, and the people were so caring about the project and seeing it was done well, and I've always been thrilled about that. I have 2 comedies in the back of my brain 3 actually, that I've always really loved, and they're probably ones that fans may not know too well unless you know theater. My 3 Angels, which is the story of 3 convicts who escaped from Devil's Island. They're on the island seeking their way off, and they are going to sneak down in this store and kill the family and take their goods and get out of there, and then they find out they have worse problems than these 3 prisoners have, so they stay and help them, and it all happens on Christmas Eve, and they're like 3 little angels. That's why it's called My 3 Angels. Oh. They decide not to escape, but to stay on Devil's Island and escape next Christmas and come out and do it again and help another family. Boy Meets Girl, which is a parody send-up of old Hollywood in the 30s. It's one of the fastest comedies ever written, and I just had the greatest time doing it out here. The current gentleman who's Tevye, Pat Geik, was in it with the guy who designed Fiddler, Gary Schwartz. They were the 2 writers who caused chaos and havoc on the lot, and they were wonderful in that. And then I've always been fond of Bleacher Bums.
Yeah, I know Bleacher Bums.
Bleacher Bums is it's called a comedy in 9 innings. A Cardinal Cub comedy in 9 innings. And we offered peanuts, popcorn, sodas, and then every night we had to clean the theater. That was our guarantee to the people, that we would clean the theater and mop it every night because of spilt soda or whatever. We made a deal with the Cubs. We could print off an actual Cardinal Cub program to give to the actors on stage.
Oh, cool.
And they said I could print one for the archives. And they were very kind, and we had to take a special letter out to Kinko's to get them to publish it, because they said, we can't do this. And they said, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
We have permission. That one's always been a very, very favorite. And people love. We sold every seat but 6 through the whole run. And for people that don't like theater, it's a great way to get experience coming to a theater, because we had advertising that said, cats, dogs, oil, water, Cubs, cards. Some things never mix. And so, being a Cardinal fan, and we had Cub fans in the show. We had Cardinal fans. We had a guy from Boston, so he was a Red Sox fan. One of the ladies, the one who sunbathes, she was from San Francisco, so she had her Giants hat on. One night we all wore our baseball hats and outfits. It was kind of fun. It was great. It was so much fun to present a show where you saw so many guys that you would probably never see at a play again, but they all came and they all seemed to have a great time. Beer Nuts helped sponsor that, so we were able to hawk it. We didn't get money for them. We threw them out to people. So, but it was treated like a baseball game. Yeah. There was a 7th inning stretch. The program had printed in it a box for box scores. And you think the Cubs are going to win, and then it gets to the 9th inning, and they didn't. Cardinals win again. No, spoiler alert, Cardinals won again. I usually don't tell people that those are my favorites, but I've enjoyed everything I've ever done.
You mentioned Sondheim.
Yes.
And I was wondering, would you be okay maybe disclosing a little bit of information about the possible book that you and Dr. Robert McLaughlin were working on?
Yes. It is called The Road to Robin Hood, and it basically traces community players from that very first eventful overtones in March 6th of 1923. And I guess if I'm almost up to working on Newsies.
Awesome.
So the goal was to have the 100 years in kind of a booklet form and photographs. I collect all the photographs of all the shows and try to keep them. I keep them archived for us. And so she mentions Dr. McLaughlin because he and his wife, he's edited Sondheim books, and he and his wife Sally have written Sondheim books, and we are all very close Sondheim fans, and Bob had a Sondheim website until his passing. And he was an English professor, and he helped edit because at one point he wrote back to me and he said, there were about 6 voices in this thing. I said, yes. I took from minutes and notes from the historians before me. And I said, I'd like to leave their voices in if we can. And so he said, I understand. And so when the opportunity comes as we finish it up with the 100th season, I'm hoping that it is a booklet of about 100 pages with photographs from as many things as we have, which was going to bring me to a personal thing. If any of your listeners have parents or grandparents or great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents now who did shows, particularly from 23 to 33, we're very shy because that booklet of photographs somehow disappeared. And I only have a couple of photos from that decade. And I would love to have any photos that anyone has. We'll make copies. We'll get them back. We won't wrinkle them. We won't hurt them.
Be a part of the history.
And be a part of the history of community players. But it's basically called The Road to Robin Hood. We tried to do a commemorative booklet back in the 75th season. And it was suggested, why don't you try for the 100 years? And so I'm like, okay, and trying to find the next 25 years. Some of this is based on the minutes, the notes, since obviously, contrary to what some of the people in this show think, I wasn't here for 1923.
Right.
I missed it.
Just missed it.
Just missed it by 3 decades. No. But it's how the curtain rose there on South Main. The creation of this building that we're in Robin Hood Lane, when it was purchased, and then the construction of we actually, probably viewers don't know, we actually bought the Esquire Theater downtown. It was an old movie theater. We were ready to go. We would have had air conditioning and 300 seats in an actual theater. And the city tore it down for parking lot. It sits the parking lot to the north of the Coliseum that is presently there.
Yeah, Grossinger. Yeah.
Yeah, Grossinger. It is the empty. If you park on that north lot there, that's the Esquire Theater. You are kind of like at a drive-in, I guess.
Oh.
Because that's where the Esquire sat. And they assured us they weren't going to condemn it, and stuff happened. Yeah. World changed, stuff happened, and they needed parking. Yeah. And so it went. And we were able to secure this land in the late 50s, and then the walls went up, and then because of Showboat, the roof went on, and we had a theater. And so we did our first show as soon as we could in May. They had cinder blocks and big, thick boards, and they all sat. It was kind of like theater in the round.
Oh, yeah.
Or a 3/4 round. And then after that, they built the stage and the seating that we now know, which it'll be the first time that seating is, the risers are demolished. That was put in 1963. And those seats, of course, are long gone. These seats will be long gone. They were never designed to last over 40 years. So that's kind of the funny part, but I'm hoping that this book will be around soon for people to read, or call it a booklet or whatever you will. I mean, it's not like 30,000 pages thick, and sadly, not all the names are in, and that's when I said, but with our new website, now all the names are there.
Yeah, the website works as almost like a search engine. So if you type in Bruce Parrish, you will find the entire archive of everything you've done here.
Although we know that when we had to shift to the new website, some things got lost, and people are constantly telling us, I didn't do that show, I did that show, and then we find where that error is. So we work hard to correct it. As I try to say in the preface of the book, it is an imperfect work because we're all human and subject to human memories and frailties. But we try very hard to make sure we have it as correct as possible. And so to our listeners, if you find errors, please let us know. Write to us, and believe me, your email will get to me, both as a president and as the historian, but it'll get to me as the historian. And we'll be honored to fix it because we're so grateful for everybody and what they've done.
I greatly appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh, I'm honored to.
I'm sure we'll talk again soon when we start, promoting the upcoming shows for all of our listeners out there to make sure we get them to experience what we've experienced over the last few years.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
That was Ashley with Bruce Parrish, President and Historian of Community Players Theater. To learn more about Community Players Theater and purchase tickets to their upcoming production, Holiday on Robin Hood Lane, visit their website, communityplayers.org, and be sure to follow along on their social media pages. Next episode will air Wednesday, November 29th, with the founder of the Coalescence Theater Project, Don Chandro. Thank you for listening to Raising the Curtain with Ashley Raylin, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and as always, support live local theater.